Hello class. Today we're going to talk about dividing decimals. But before we do that, let's review just dividing by regular whole numbers. So this question, there's something I got to ask you about this one. Which number goes in the house? And the answer that you need to give me is always the first number. Doesn't matter about anything else. It's always the first number. The biggest misconception is we think the biggest number needs to go in the house. And no, that is not correct. It is always the first number. All right, so let me move this out of the way so we can do this. And this 1368, we call that the dividend because it goes in the house. And you write that number first and put it inside the house. Okay. Then this 3 is called the divisor, okay, or the divider. We put it on the outside. And then we begin our division. We ask ourselves, how many times does 3 go into 1? Well, it goes 0 times, so you can put a 0 up here if you want to, or not put anything at all. And then we ask, how many times does 3 go into 13? Well, it goes in there 4 times, because 4 times 3 gives us 12. All right, so we subtract, and we end up with 1 left over, and we bring our 6 down. And then we ask ourselves, how many times does 3 go into 16? Well, it goes in there 5 times, because 3 times 5 is 15. We subtract, we end up with 1. And then we bring our 8 down. 3 goes into 18 6 times. And we end up with a remainder of 0. So 1,368 divided by 3 is 456. Okay, so if we wanted to check that, we could take 456 and multiply by 3, and you would get 1368 back. So let's kind of review what it is that we did. So what steps did we use to do that division problem? Well, the first step that we did was the dividend went in the house and the divisor went on the outside. And again, to find the dividend, it's always the first number. No matter what that first number is, that's the number that goes in the house. And then we simply divide. We begin dividing. Now, I like using a little acronym to help us called Dead Monkey Smell Bad. Okay, what that stands for is divide. The D stands for divide. The M stands for multiply. The S stands for subtract. And then the B stands for bring down. Okay, so we divide our number, we multiply, we subtract, and we bring down. Okay, so let's try that again. Okay, what if I had 425 divided by 8? Well, again, the first question I'll ask is which number goes in the house? The first one. So 425 divided by 8, and the 8 is the divisor. So now we begin dividing. 8 goes into 4 how many times? 0 times. 8 goes into 42 5 times. So that's our divide. Now we multiply. 5 times 8 is 40. We subtract, and then we bring down. Okay? And many of you liked using the little arrow, and that's perfectly fine. So then we begin the process again. So 8 goes into 25 how many times? So when we look at our multiplication facts, it will go 3 times. So then multiply. 3 times 8 is 24. We subtract. We get 1 as a remainder. Now, we've got 1 left over. Now, we can do one of two things at this point. Okay, we can either take our leftovers and write it as a fraction, and I would end up with 53. And then you take the number that is left over, the 1, place that as the numerator, and the number I divided by, we place that as the denominator. All right, so that's one way we could write our leftovers. But since we're working with decimals today, we're going to have a decimal answer. So what we do when we have leftovers is we add a decimal. We bring our decimal up into our answer, and then we add a 0. And then we bring our 0 down. And then we continue our division. 8 goes into 10 1 time. We multiply. 1 times 8 is 8. We subtract and we get 2. Uh-oh, I still have leftovers. So I add another 0. Okay. Then we go 8 goes into 20. Well, that goes 2 times. 2 times 8 gives us 16. We end up with 4 left over. Uh-oh. So we add another 0. And you continue adding zeros until one of two things happens. 1, we end up with the remainder of 0. Or 2, you determine that there is a pattern of repeating numbers, or repeating digits. Okay, so I bring this last zero down, the last zero that we added. We get 8 goes into 40, 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40 with a remainder of 0. So it did finally stop. So as a decimal, 425 divided by 8 will give us 53.125. And that's what we're talking about by division of decimals. So if you were dividing a whole number by another whole number, and that whole number doesn't quite go into the big whole number here, then we add a decimal, add some zeros, and we keep dividing until, again, one of two things happens. Either my remainder is 0, or you determine that there is a pattern of repeating digits going on. So let's try another one. But this time, let's look at an actual decimal number. So we've got a decimal divided by a whole number. Now again, this number right here, this goes in the house, strictly because it's the first number. So 56.4, and I'm going to divide that by 3. So take a moment to divide that one if you want to. You can pause the video, or you can continue listening. Okay, now, first question we ask is can I divide by this 3? Since it's a whole number, yes, you can divide by the 3. You can only divide by whole numbers. So if this number on the outside, the divisor, is a whole number, then I take the decimal that is part of the divisor, I bring it straight up, and I begin my division just like always. And I don't have to worry about the decimal anymore. So now I ask, 3, does it go into 5? Yes, it does. It goes 1 time. So 1 times 3 is 3. We subtract. We get 2 as a leftover. We bring down our 6. Right? And right now we're still on the left side of the decimal, so our numbers are going to be on the left side. So 3 goes into 26 8 times. 3 times 8 gives us 24. We subtract. We get 2 left over. Now I bring this 4 down. Now, this 4 is on the right-hand side of the decimal. So that means the number that I put up here also needs to be on the right side of the decimal. So we ask ourselves, how many times does 3 go into 24? 8 times. 8 times 3 is 24 with a remainder of 0. So 56.4 divided by 3 gives you 18.8 as an answer. So that's what we do if our divisor is our dividend. If it is a decimal and our divisor is a whole number, you just bring the decimal up to the top and do your division as always. Well, what if both numbers are decimals? Can I divide by this 0.4? And the answer is no. So we write our problem, 7.32 divided by 0.4. If this divisor is a decimal, you cannot divide by it. So we have to change it. That's what we do, we change it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this decimal and I'm going to move it until this number, 0.4, is a whole number. So that means in a whole number, I know my decimal will be at the end. So I'm going to move this decimal to the very end, which basically what I'm doing is I'm multiplying that number by 10. Right? Well, we know that there's a rule in fractions and decimals that what I do to one, I must do to the other. So if I move the decimal in this divisor one place to the right, I've got to move the decimal in the dividend one place to the right. So I take this decimal and I move it one place to the right. And then I bring my decimal up. Now it's just like a regular problem, just like the last one. So this number is no longer a 4, and this number is no longer a 0.4, it's now a 4. And the number on the inside is no longer a 7.32, it's now a 73.2. So now I begin my division. 4 goes into 7, 1 time. Multiply, 1 times 4 is 4, subtract, and we get 3. Bring down our 3. 4 goes into 33. Well, 4 times 8 is 32, so it goes 8 times. We subtract, we get 1. We bring down our 2. Now notice this 2 is now on the right-hand side of the decimal. So whatever value I get above that goes to the right of the decimal. 4 goes into 12, 3 times. 4 times 3 is 12, remainder of 0. So 7.32 divided by 0.4 is 18.3. All right. Now let's try one more, and we'll call it a day. So here's the last one. This is the biggest one we have. All right. Now again, this first number goes inside the house. So 3.455 divided by, now anytime you have a leading zero like that zero right there, you don't have to worry about that one. You don't have to put that one in. And then I've got a 0.05 on the outside. Now in the previous problem, I had to move the decimal one place to get it to a whole number. In this one, I have to move the decimal 2 places over to get it to where that 5 will be a whole number. So in essence, I'm multiplying this number by 100 in order to move the decimal 2 places to the right. So I need to move the decimal in the dividend 2 places to the right as well. And then bring my decimal straight up to the top. And now we begin our division. 5 goes into 3, 0 times. Okay. Then 5 goes into 34, 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30. We subtract, we get 4. Bring the 5 down. 5 goes into 45, 9 times. 9 times 5 is 45, 0 left over. Bring the 5 on down. Now that 5 is on the right of the decimal, so my value should be on the right of the decimal in my answer. So 5 goes into 5 how many times? 1 time. And we end up with 0 left over there. So 3.455 divided by 0.05 is equivalent to 69.1. So to kind of review what we have to do to divide decimals. The first thing, if it's a whole number, kind of like this problem right here, I don't have to do anything. I just move the decimal straight up and I divide. If I have one number that's to the right of my decimal in my divisor, then I need to move my decimal in my dividend and my divisor. In this case, I had to move it one place. Now, what if it had like 3 places like this problem? Well, in this one, I'd have to move it 3 places over, which is the same as multiplying by 1,000, which means I'd have to multiply this one over by 1,000 and move it over 3 places as well. Okay, so to divide by decimals, it's really pretty simple. Okay, 1, the divisor can't be a decimal. So you turn it into a whole number by moving the decimal however many places you need to. And however many places you move the decimal in your divisor, you have to also do it in your dividend. Move the decimal up and then begin your division. Until next time.